Hey everyone, it's Dylan with CT Aquatics, and today I'm going to be performing maintenance on this tank. If you're new to saltwater fish tanks, this is a great video for you to watch, as I'm going to be going over both the daily and weekly maintenance required for keeping a tank. As you can see, this tank is a little overdue for maintenance, as there's some algae growing on the glass and it looks a little dirty. But don't worry, overall the system is still healthy. So to start off, I'm going to go over the daily maintenance. Daily maintenance is pretty simple. If this is your first saltwater fish tank, one thing to remember is that it's not just a pet, but an ecosystem. So you not only have to treat it like a pet that requires daily care, but you also have to maintain the ecosystem on a weekly basis. With that being said, I'm going to start with daily and then I'll go over weekly. The most important part of daily maintenance is feeding. You need to make sure that all of the inhabitants in your tank are well fed. For this tank, I have a pellet mix that I keep in a glass right here, and I have a little scoop for measuring so that I know I'm feeding the same amount every day. Now, simply all I do is I take one scoop in the morning and one scoop at night, and I throw it into the tank. So I will show you that now. There, I did one level scoop, and I just threw it into the tank, and I threw it with a little bit of force. That way, some food is going to always float, but some of it's going to break the water tension, and it will start to flow through the rest of the tank. That way, all of the fish will start to grab it. Other feeding options, depending on your tank size and inhabitants, may include frozen food, which I do like to feed these fish frozen food a few times a week. And if you have a lot of algae eaters, it's also important to supplement in nori seaweed sheets. This tank here doesn't have anything that necessarily needs the nori, so I don't feed that all too often. But in some of my other tanks, I feed nori either daily or every other day, depending on the number of algae eating fish in that tank. You can also add vitamins to your food. Something like Celcon or Vitamarin from Brightwell could be a good supplement to add in order to help keep your fish healthy and happy. Adding a garlic additive can also be something to help entice picky eaters to grab at food. The next important thing to do on a daily basis is going to simply be to observe the tank. You want to take a look and see and make sure that all of the inhabitants are happy and healthy. Make sure that there's no diseases or signs of it. Make sure that the coral is all open. If you do notice anything awry with the tank, it's important to take swift action, but don't be too overdramatic. If you see algae, it might not be a bad idea to use your algae scraper and clean it off of the glass or maybe off of the rock, as letting it go for too long can cause much bigger issues. But you also don't want to act too quickly in some cases, where if you see a coral closed up, it might just be because the coral wants to be closed at that moment. Sometimes corals will react different ways at different times of the day, but it doesn't mean that they're unhealthy. With that being said, it's important to not be too dramatic with some of your actions. And so, like I said, if you see a coral closed up, don't necessarily just grab it out and dip it thinking that it has a pest. Maybe keep an eye on it for a day or two, and if it continues to stay closed, then take some action, rather than acting too quickly and potentially causing more harm. Another important daily task that I like to undertake is topping off my tank. Every saltwater fish tank is going to experience some level of evaporation. When the water evaporates from the tank, it leaves all of the salt behind. What that means is over time, the salinity of our tank is actually going to increase. To combat this, we like to add fresh RO water to the tank as water evaporates in order to 1, maintain the water level in the system, and 2, maintain the salinity level of the system. I keep my jug of RO right here next to the tank. I add RO daily to maintain a level of water in the back of the tank. It's also important to top off the system before doing any water changes. That way, the salinity matches from the new water you're putting into the tank versus the water that's already in the tank. Now let's get into the weekly maintenance. For weekly maintenance, I like to perform an overall system cleaning. What that means is I like to vacuum the sand, clean the glass, and do a water change. Doing a water change helps to lower the overall nutrient level in the system, as well as help to restore trace elements and an overall balance in the system. Starting my weekly maintenance, the first thing that I like to do is clean the glass. To do this, I'm going to have to remove the lid and use an algae scraper. Now, I do have an algae scraper that's on a magnet on the side of the tank, and I do use this every few days, not necessarily daily, but I do like to wipe off the glass every couple of days to help maintain a clear viewing pane. But this week, I was slacking a little bit and I let the algae get a little overboard. So now I'm going to use a metal scraper instead of the foam magnetic one to clean the glass. So to start this off, I'm going to pull my mesh lid off and set it aside. I have this metal razor blade scraper, and now I'm just going to reach into the tank and start scraping the glass. I'm also going to pull tufts of hair algae that I see and just drop them into the filter sock. I'm dropping them into the filter sock because that's going to get changed out today too. This one tuft of hair algae was growing around a plug of zoas, but there's an urchin in this tank that's done a really good job of cleaning up the majority of the rest of the hair algae. Now I'm just going to continue scraping the glass. My clownfish is trying to bite me. There's most of the scraping done, and I'm just going to do a little bit of touch up with my magnet scraper. I can't reach every little bit with the razor. I also recommend having a towel around. I keep this one on the floor. I can pick it up to dry my hand off when needed, and it also helps to keep the floor dry. Like I said, continuing on, I'm just going to use this magnet scraper, try and get into all the corners. This razor's not as sharp, but it should still do the job. All right, now that the glass has been cleaned and I've pulled some algae off of the rocks, I'm gonna pull the filter sock out, throw it in the bucket. Then I'm going to actually turn the whole system off and start my water change. So there is the filter sock out of the holder. I'm not going to put a new filter sock in quite yet, so I'm just going to keep this out of the tank. There's a couple snails on it that I just want to put back in the tank. So I'm just going to set the filter sock holder aside for now. And I can't forget to top off. want to make sure that the tank is at the normal level so that my salinity is matching the pre-mixed salt water that I have. Alright, so the RO water's been added in, and so the level is where it should be. Now I'm going to use a siphon and a bucket and pull 10 to 20% of the water out of this system. So this system holds about 15 gallons, so I'm going to pull about anywhere from 1.5 to 3 gallons out. While I'm siphoning the water out of the tank, I am going to also vacuum the sand. So what that means is I'm going to stick the end of the siphon into the sand, and when I see the sand get up to the top of the siphon, I will pinch the tube, which will stop the flow of water, dropping the sand back down, but the dirt will stay suspended in the siphon so that when I unpinch the tube and the water starts flowing, the dirt will get sucked out, but again, the sand will fall back. So I'll show you that now. So now the water is flowing. So now I have finished cleaning the sand. It's been pretty thoroughly cleaned, and now I'm just pulling a little bit of extra water out so that I can get to the 2.5 gallon point for this cleaning. Before I turn the tank back on and finish draining it, I'm going to install a new filter sock. So I have a brand new clean filter sock here, and I have the holder that I set aside before. I'm just going to stick the sock in the holder and drop it right in the back. At this point, I've pulled out enough water, so I'm just going to remove the siphon. I'm going to set this bucket aside. I'm going to dump it later. And now I'm going to start to fill the tank back up with some fresh salt water. I'm just going to try and pour it easy to not disturb the inhabitants too much. I don't know if I've put enough water in yet, but I have put enough in to at least get the tank running. So I'm just going to turn the power strip back on and get everything going again. All right, so it seems like the tank water level has stabilized, and I'm just slightly low in the back, so I just need to add a splash more. And it looks like that's perfect. So now I can reinstall my lid. And the tank has been successfully cleaned. Besides cleaning the tank, another important thing to do every week is test your tank. I recommend testing nitrates, phosphates, and alkalinity first, as those tend to be the most important elements. Following those, it's also important to test calcium and magnesium. I'm not going to go into too much detail of how to test or why to test these, as I have covered testing these elements in previous videos. So there you go. You've gotten to see me go through and take care of this tank. Hope you enjoyed what you saw. And remember, If you enjoy our content, please like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications to join us on our journey through the sea. Or drop a comment below and tell us what you thought of the video. Thanks for watching.